Welcome to Leominster Access Television and Neighborhood Snapshot. My name is Bob Sardelli. I am a member of the Leominster Historical Commission. Today we are pleased to welcome back Mr. Joseph A. Goodhue Jr., lifelong Leominster resident, who is going on 92, an amazing gentleman. He was born in 1914. Joe, through his amazing life, has been a businessman, entrepreneur, inventor, sportsman. And he's a very nice gentleman. Welcome again, Joe.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Nice to be here.
Pleased to have you here. We've entitled this program Recipe for Success, Part 2. For the benefit of the LATV audience, we are briefly going to review through a series of pictures that we showed during Recipe for Success Part 1. We'll go through a series of photographs to bring us up to the point in Joe's story where we'll start today. But first we're going to show a series of photographs. And we'll briefly comment on a number of them. This is a site. It's the former Leominster Horn and Supply Company. It's at the corner of Graham and Central Streets. It is no longer there. Currently, there is a brand new, last couple of years, CVS store, so you're familiar with this. And this was Joe's dad's business, place of business, the Horn and Supply Company, where machete handles were made out of animal horns and
That's correct.
other things. Joe worked for a while, very hard at that when he was a kid. And it became the site of a number of Joe's businesses, the Goodhue Enterprises and the boat business, the dock business. And as I've said before, I bought a rowboat from Joe years back. So this is one of the spots. We had talked at length about this during the last program. This is a picture of Joe's dad, Joseph A. Goodhue.
Right.
And your grandfather was Joseph A.
I think it was Joseph F. I'm not
Joseph
sure.
F. Goodhue, and we are pleased to have Joseph A. Goodhue Jr.
Right.
And this is Joseph A. Goodhue Jr. a long time ago when he was honing his entrepreneurial skills. He was a salesman for a number of magazines, and that is Joe with his bicycle and his wagon.
Curtis Publishing Company.
Curtis Publishing Company. And this is a picture of Joe in high school when he was a member of the undefeated 1933 state championship team for Leominster High. And we'll show, in a little bit, we'll show some other pictures of some of your teammates on that undefeated team.
Right.
This is a picture, well, we're getting a little ahead of things. We hadn't shown this one the last time. This is a picture of, we don't know who these two people are, but here is Joe with his mom, and this is on the occasion of the 15th anniversary
of the restaurant.
Of Goodhue's famous restaurant in Leominster. Longtime residents of Leominster will have fond memories of Goodhue's restaurant, and we'll get into that more a bit in the program. And now, Joe, we didn't show this picture the last time, but who's this fellow? Looks familiar to me, but he looks like he's from Russia. Yeah. What is the story on this one?
The significance is that Daniel Donnie was the art director at Leominster High School. He went to Russia. When he came back, I told him to pick me up a shirt over there. So that's the shirt that I got from Daniel Downey.
And this is a high school picture?
High school picture.
You were in high school.
Right.
Okay. And then a little later, after college, the University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton Business School, this is a picture of you and your lovely wife.
Right. Kathleen.
Kathleen. Okay. And then later on, this is your mom and your sister.
My sister.
Sister
Catherine.
Catherine. Okay. And then we showed this picture the last time. These three fellows, I recognize Joe, and this is his older brother, William, and his kid brother, Charles. And they're all 90 years old, so
right. Very
good genes in the family, Joe.
Well, thanks to doctors. We just about made it.
And now, again, a little in the review process, you did many things, very hard worker all your life. To work your way through college, one of the things you did was, when we talked about this at length the last time, Camp Tahoe, which was a day camp on Spec Pond.
Right.
And that was in the years?
About 1935 to 1938.
And 1935 to 38, it was for children and boys and girls, age about 6 to 12 approximately. Many great activities. I hadn't realized, and I've lived in Leominster all my life, that there was such a thing as Camp Tahoe, but it was a very up-and-coming and very successful operation, I take it, from...
Did very well. I put myself through college.
Put yourself through college.
And bought a station wagon.
A woody station wagon, which you used to transport the kids.
Right.
And then you started working, a full-time job. You worked for the Campbell's Soups Company.
Yes.
What did you do for Campbell's Soups? You told us the last time.
I worked with the Department of Sales Research and testing different products to see whether they'll go over in certain areas of the country.
So test marketing.
Right, marketing.
The idea of test marketing. And as I said the last time, Joe threw very little away. And he really made me work for this interview. This is the business card, Joe's business card that he'd hand out. I assume when you worked for Campbell's Soups, it says Joseph A. Goodhue Jr., Campbell's Soups. So what I find amazing is that Campbell's Soups was just starting out
Yes.
at that time, and you were involved in the actual marketing of the company. So
That's correct.
all of this is, and this idea of marketing and getting creative ideas goes throughout your life, as we'll see. You did so many things. Now, you came back to Leominster now, and you decided, what brought you back from Campbell's Soups, working for Campbell's Soups, to Leominster to work? Your dad had passed away. Tell us, Joe.
Okay. The reason I came back mainly was you really see the handwriting on the wall with big companies. You're either a little peon or you're the upper crust. But there's a lot of politics in big companies, and I just didn't want any part of it. I wanted to do my own thing. And when they transferred me from Philadelphia to Boston, why, I said, this is the time to change my setup and go with my mother and start a big restaurant in Leominster.
Now, your mom, your dad had passed away.
that same year.
That same year. So you came back home, you decided to help out your mom and come to Leominster and work in the restaurant.
Right.
She had a food exchange. Tell us something about that. I found that interesting. And this is after you had gone through the years of the Depression, and this would be now, well, it's the end of the World War II, is just on the edge of World War II.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And what had your mom done? She had worked very hard during the Depression years to help put you kids to college.
Well, my mother was a good cook. She graduated from Drexel Institute in Philadelphia. And I found some of the old recipes she had, which are wonderful, wonderful recipes. And when she started the Women's Exchange, everybody wanted her food rather than anybody else's, and different people brought in food to sell.
So how did the exchange work? Someone would make a cake and bring it in
That's right.
to sell? They'd see an item someone else had cooked and they would exchange it or trade it? Is that how it worked?
Well, they'd put them in a showcase to sell, and they were sold by
That was
more in.
that brought in some income for the person.
Right. She got a percentage out of everything that was brought in there. That's the way it worked.
Now, that was in Leominster?
In Leominster.
Okay.
Right next to the corner West and Main Street.
Okay.
One of the stores there.
And then how did the restaurant start? And the restaurant was located on Main Street, right next to where it was.
The original restaurant was located, I believe that was the Mayo Block.
The Mayo Block.
Right.
Okay.
That's where it started, 46 Main Street.
And today, for people who are new to Leominster, the big restaurant, Goodhue's, was near where yours truly is that, or near the Allen store, in between there?
Next to Allen's.
Next to Allen's.
Right.
Next to Allen's, which then would have been the Nickerson Block and then Allen's.
With an alleyway in between.
With an alleyway in between.
With just about room enough for a horse and buggy to go through.
In a moment, we're going to put up some pictures of the restaurant. It was a very, very, very successful restaurant. It seated, Joe, at its height, you had, it was room for 100 people, and it wasn't a little tiny place. And this was in an era before there were no fast food restaurants.
No.
No fast food restaurants. There were a number of diners in town. Successful diners, and there still are some diners in town, nice diners. Not necessarily with the diner car, although Tim's is sort of like, looks like a diner car, but no fast food restaurants. So people today in 2005 are so accustomed to fast food restaurants. Goodhue's restaurant, tell us something about that.
Well, we had a varied menu. Luncheon menu was less than $1, and coffee was 5 cents. Desserts were 10 cents, maybe 15 cents. All in all, it was a restaurant for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And it's very unusual. You could get customers for 3 times a day.
Could someone go in for a soda? Did you have like a soda
We had a
bar?
wonderful soda fountain. We had 18 stools on it. I'll tell you a little story about that if you'd like.
Sure.
It seems that Thursday night was a busy night. Everybody shopped on Thursday night, and I was behind the soda fountain making fraps, which are milkshakes with ice cream in and so forth. And I had to grab one of the frap cans out of the sink, and I shook it up and put the mix in it and so forth. Figured it would be clean, nice and clean. And I made a frap for a gentleman. I think it was a coffee frap, and he said, "That's the best frap I ever had." And it seemed to overflow quite a bit, and I couldn't understand why. So I said, here's a little extra you can have, and I gave it to him. And I looked in the bottom of the frap can, there was a cake of soap in the bottom of
it. Did he ever find out about that? Did he really?
I hope he never did. I don't know.
We're going to put up shortly on the screen, we're going to show a picture of some scenes in the restaurant. And your mom had a big part in the restaurant for the first
Oh, yes, very much so.
15 years or
Very
so.
much so. Of course, a year later, the war came on, and we did a thriving business, mainly because we were close enough to Fort Devens, so we got a lot of people from Fort Devens. And we also had a log of different people looking for a place to stay. And we kept that up to date, and we had over 500 rooms of people in Leominster who volunteered a room in their house.
For the servicemen. For the
Yes.
servicemen. This scene shows, I think, the 15th anniversary. On the monitor, it shows the 15th anniversary celebration of the restaurant. And there's also, in a moment, we'll show. Here's another view of that. And then we have a picture. These are some of the waitresses.
Yes. Well, my memory fails me, but the Mildred Johnson's on the right there. That's the only one I can remember. Of course, we changed waitresses quite often.
I know my aunt used to love coming downtown. I think it was on Thursdays, because Thursday in Leominster was payday, right, for the
correct.
factories, and Friday was the big night for Fitchburg, I think.
Right.
And I remember my aunt, as a treat with her girlfriends, they would come down to the restaurant, and they loved the toasted cheese sandwich or something. That was a big deal to them, and they looked forward to that. And this was a time when the malls weren't really around then, right? This was downtown Leominster, downtown Fitchburg.
Right.
Both of them were booming. Downtown was the place to be.
Until after the war.
Until after the war, and
Right.
then things changed.
Right.
Joe, shortly we're going to show another picture in the restaurant of your mom, and she's, I guess, down in the kitchen of the restaurant, and there are a number of turkeys that are being roasted, and I want you to mention something about that. Now, this picture, what can you tell us about this?
Well, at Thanksgiving and Christmas both, we used to roast turkeys for people. We'd stuff them and then roast them and make gravy for them. And
As a service, in other words, you would roast their turkeys for them.
right.
And that is done today. And it just occurred to me that I thought that was a new thing, a new service that people did. Instead of going through the cooking at home, the preparation, they send out and all the turkey and all the fixings. But you were doing that way back then.
Yes, that's right.
Boy, the more I learn about you, the more Yankee ingenuity. I want to show some other pictures, a few other pictures, and these I have photographs of, and I'll put these up. Joe, what's going on in this one? Do you recall? It's on the monitor, and
That's sort of the chef doing his thing there, showing people what he does in the kitchen. That was our kitchen there.
that was the kitchen.
That's right.
And here I see another of the kitchen workers is
That's the bakery department, which was down cellar.
down cellar.
Down cellar is right.
And the bakery. So that gets us into the bakery part of it, and which was a big part of the successful restaurant business and the bakery. And I want to show, last time we ended the program, it was amazing. You had a big bakery, not just here in Leominster, but we'll talk about elsewhere in Worcester too. But Joe, what are these things? I see Goodhue's multi-purpose fresh frozen dough. Quick, easy, fun, delicious. A variety of products all from one package. And I'll hold that up.
Yes, I had a plant in Worcester, a very small one to start with, and then I bought Tatnick Ice Company and converted it over to frozen foods and made it all practically automatic. We were doing about 35,000 loaves of bread per day.
It was big time,
And
big.
we had distribution throughout New England at about 96% of the stores.
Wow.
And frozen pies, I came out with frozen pies, and I came out with frozen cookies, a number of different items. But unfortunately, there weren't any frozen food cases.
You were
Jordan Mounts is the only place you could put product in.
you were really ahead of your time.
All the way.
How did you?
As a matter of fact, today they have an item called frozen pockets. And I had frozen pockets in 1970, and the buyers looked at it and passed it on.
Is that the pocket, like the pocket bread?
You put, actually I was putting a pizza inside the pocket. And you ate it, and then you got the nice juicy pizza, tomato, and so forth inside the pocket.
Joe, how did you? We take these things for granted today, frozen foods, but you were really a pioneer, and no joke about the pie pioneer. You know, you were really
no joke intended.
No joke intended, but you were. Although I thought that was kind of a pretty good thing, and now that I think of it, but that makes a good joke now. You were really a pioneer in the frozen dough business. How did? Right. And I'm not kidding. I mean, you really. There wasn't frozen dough before that time, right? How did you get into that? And is there a connection between you and your brother William with the frozen? No. This is all
mine.
All yours.
My younger brother was very instrumental in making all the designs and so forth.
We'll show some of those.
He was very, very good and gracious to me, I can say that.
But how did you get into this idea of frozen dough? You made a lot of dough in your life, Joe, literally and figuratively.
No, I spent a lot too.
Well, tell us.
Easy come, easy go.
Tell us about the frozen dough and how did that come about?
Well, it came about actually. A fellow from Boston called me up and said he had a place on Atlantic Avenue where he had some machinery to make frozen products, and if I wanted to buy it, I could buy it for $1 a machine over a period of time, and he didn't tell me the total price to begin with, but he told me $1 a machine, which of course automatically rang a bell. So I started at Atlantic Avenue and then decided it was too expensive down there and moved it to Worcester, where I operated at Walker Ice, Coal Ice Company for a while, and then I bought Tatnick Ice, where we ended up making a large investment and paying off as well.
But the dough itself, you experimented with dough and...
Yes, I had an excellent recipe for pizza dough, probably a little richer than the regular pizza dough, but it prolongs the life of the product, which is the most important.
And I have here and you eventually became, this was big time. I mean, you really used 35,000 loaves a day of the breads and so on, and then the dough business. This is an article from the New York Herald Tribune, which probably doesn't exist anymore, the newspaper, but April 4th, 1949, and I'm going to read from it. It's a reprint of an article. New fresh frozen doughs make rolls and pies. Boston Concerns product enables home baker to score an early success. And people are going to get hungry when they hear this. Here's clover leaf rolls, warm from the oven, golden brown, crusted, soft to the touch, a wisp of steam when you pull them apart, light, tender textured, spread on the butter, a dip of raspberry jam, appetite appeasing, yours any night for dinner. baked in 20 minutes with a new, fresh frozen dough here out of Boston. A dough simple to handle. We take this for granted today. A dough simple to handle. Let the rolls defrost at room temperature, then raise to double their bulk in a warm place, requiring 2, maybe 3 hours. Now I think it's even faster than that. They pop them in. Or have the Parker House rolls, the same dough, just differently shaped. Give them the same treatment. And then it goes on explaining the dough, and it talks about pies, 4 fruit pies in the fresh dough line. Fresh from the oven, these ready for the oven. The apple, blueberry, cherry, and mince. These fresh frozen doughs come from the Goodhue Bakery, a mother-son business now 20 years old, with 1 store in Leominster, Mass., 1 in Worcester, the bakery in Boston. Now comes the Manhattan invasion. You invaded New York, Joe, with your product. Now comes the Manhattan invasion. The rolls are being distributed, and then it tells by the Carl Seeberger, and it goes on to explain that. And the distributors. Ask at your local frozen food store for Goodhue's Clover Leaf and Parker House rolls and white bread dough, and don't miss anything, and don't for anything miss out on the pies. And it goes on to explain that. So I went to New York, and then here's a reprint from shortly after in the Boston Herald that talks about frozen pies, bread found very good and easy to use. Now, we look at the frozen food case today, and we just, you have all kinds of things, and you pick this, that, and that. But this was something new. You were really a pioneer in that business.
Back when?
Made a lot of dough, Joe. And you were an advertising man, too, marketing, your marketing experience. I want to show this. This is a postcard, and it'll make you hungry. Goodhue's fresh frozen dough, and on the back, this is a postcard. You could place a stamp and send it out, and hi, I'm Mr. Doughboy. Now, you probably came up with that before
Pillsbury.
Pillsbury.
Yeah, probably did.
You might listen. Can we make a deal? Maybe there's a lawsuit here, Joe, and we can retroactively get some. This is something. Hi, I'm Mr. Doughboy from Goodhue's. Are you in the dough? So many housewives are. They're using Goodhue's frozen dough for making pizza, fried dough, rolls, or bread. Next time you go shopping, remember Goodhue's frozen dough. It's delicious and oh so good, good, good. And your signature, Joe Goodhue. P.S. If your favorite store has not as yet stocked Goodhue's, ask the manager to order it for you today. And you sent these out to various people.
Yes.
Pays to advertise.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And speaking of advertising, you had all kinds of gimmicks. These were special offers. I'm going to put this up, and then it was a tear off
Yes.
thing people could take.
Right.
Which was an idea in itself, a good idea in itself. And I'm going to read what this says. Kate, special offer from Goodhue's. Take one. Kate Goodhue recommends this Echo aluminum rolling pin for making your pastries. Lighter weight, so you combine that, you could get a rolling pin, an aluminum rolling pin.
Right.
Something that a lot of houses don't use today. All right.
That's true.
All right, but lighter weight, copper finish with ball bearings to ensure freer turning. That was a high-tech rolling pin. Adds up to the most modern rolling pin you can use. A Kate Goodhue kitchen special. All kinds of things in your advertising, very, very witty advertising. Did your brother's advertising agency, Charles, have something to do with this? And
he sure did.
He made up, so it was
without him, I'd probably been lost.
Okay, and this was another one, coffee cake dough. You had all kinds of things. This, again.
That shows the diversity of just plain dough, what you can make out of it.
What you can make out of just plain dough.
Right.
And touching again on the idea of things your brother designed, this plastic that your brother had was instrumental in this too?
Yes.
Okay, this is a wrapper for Goodhue fresh frozen bread dough.
It came out with a 3-pound package
of dough.
That's the result of it, in 3 pounds in a package.
Okay.
Which helps increase the volume very nicely.
The now you had other. Tell me, Joe. There was also in Worcester. Now, what is this picture? Appetizers, ice cream, frozen foods. Was this the store in Worcester?
That's our store in Worcester.
Store in Worcester.
Completely redesigned after the war.
Okay, and then here's the same store in Worcester, I think, and it shows here the
Showcases and so forth.
other cases.
They had a
cakes
frozen
and-
food case in there.
It had a frozen food case.
Small one.
So that was unusual at
Yes, it was.
the time.
And
And
we had an A&P next door that didn't even have a frozen food
so
case
the
in it.
A&P store next door, the market, did not have a frozen food
Right.
case, and
I want to tell you a little story.
did.
On the frozen food case. It's hard to believe, but it's true. The fastest selling item, of course outside of Goodhue's dough, was frozen horse meat. Frozen horse meat.
Why was that?
Well, what the dogs have to eat too.
So-
And that's where they got the food for the dogs.
Well, I'm
And I
sure.
don't know whether people ate it or not. but
I'll
it was-
bet that maybe people ate it too. But this was, now what year was this about? Was this right after the war?
Right after the
Right
war.
after the war. So
Right
was
after the war.
rationing was done, but was there a lot of beef around yet, or?
Well, a lot of beef around, is that what you're telling me?
What I'm saying, no, what I'm saying, could people go to the store and buy steak and things, or was horse meat still?
After the war, we began to get supermarkets, but very slowly.
Slowly. So I'll bet
Slowly.
that some of that frozen horse meat went to.
I don't know whether they can even find it in the case anymore.
It was a quick selling item.
Yeah.
Some other pictures of that, Joe. Now there's a tie-in. What is this?
That's a refrigerated window
A refrigerated window.
with all kinds of delicatessen items in and so forth.
Where was this? Was this?
That's in Worcester.
That's at the Worcester store.
Right.
Okay, so you were really ahead of your time. Okay. Now, what is this one? Now, Joe, while I've got these, here's another picture of, I imagine these are some of the waitresses at at Goodhue's restaurant.
Right.
And,
right.
okay. And what is this one? What's going on here?
I believe her name was Casey, but she was with
Television station.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at a TV station.
And
Where we demonstrated bread dough.
bread dough. And I want to call, I think, is this a pirate cake?
That is the pirate cake.
That's a pirate cake. And I'm going to show you something, one of your many different things you did. This was a plastic item. It's a belt. Did this get wrapped around?
Oh, they were little trinkets.
Those little trinkets.
That you put in a belt. Actually, you probably need the photograph of the cake first of all.
Okay.
I don't know whether you have that or not.
Is
But,
this?
yeah, there's the cake there. That was I had two different cakes I designed with plastic on the outside that could be put on there as a sort of a treasure chest. One was called the pirate cake, and the other was called, for the boys, and the other was called a sweetheart cake.
Okay. Maybe that's the sweetheart cake. And
With plastic handles and so forth,
okay,
like a little treasure chest.
a little treasure chest. It was
And
a cake.
inside were the little trinkets. They were in plastic tubes so they wouldn't interfere with the cake at all. They were put in after the cake was baked, not
Okay.
before.
Okay, and so you wouldn't end up eating the
Yeah,
tube.
eating plastic.
But what did this belt? Is there a connection between this belt and that cake? Because I see it looks
Well,
like
those handles and so forth were part of the cake
part of the
itself.
part of the
And
cake
that was-
itself. And
Yeah,
these
that was put inside the cake itself.
okay, and these little trinkets
They
were
were made by
Castle novelties.
Novelty right here, almost close to
Where this-
where I'm
Where we're
talking
sitting
right now.
Where we're sitting on Manning Avenue in
That's
in
right,
the
they
studio.
were.
The Castle Novelties was a plastic factory.
Right, by Serafini.
Mr. Serafini ran it, and there was a huge fire,
Explosion.
explosion and fire.
That's right.
And,
destroyed everything.
Destroyed everything, and the Mount Pleasant Avenue area, and it was tremendous, one of the biggest fires in Leominster's history.
true.
But these items were made at Castle Novelty.
That's right.
Okay? Some of these items, and some other items, and we'll get into it. You did so many things, Joe, and we'll see now what in the world is, you were so ahead of your time. This says, as I was looking through your things, this is a box of apples, beautiful apples, and it says apples from the birthplace of Johnny Appleseed, Leominster, Mass. I'm going to hold this up. And
Those apples were suspended in a pliofilm so that in shipping, none of them got damaged at all.
they didn't get bruised in shipping.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the package cost more than the apples.
But this was one of your businesses.
Right.
That you started, and as I was going through things, I came across this. It says Top of the Hill House, Box 461, Leominster, Mass. And it's, I guess, the ordering material for the apples. And I'll read the little letter that goes out with it. Dear friend, this is Top of the Hill House, apples from the birthplace of Johnny Appleseed. Dear friend, with great pride, Top of the Hill House of Leominster, Massachusetts presents its Macintosh Apple gift box. The great Neshoba Valley of New England is famous for the finest quality Macintosh apples. Here in Leominster, Johnny Appleseed was born to take a lasting place in the folklore of our nation. In the tradition of Johnny Appleseed, Top of the Hill House carries on with apples of quality for you to give and for all to enjoy. And it goes on to explain the apples, and you can order these. The point being that you started that business, mail order business for apples.
Right. We had a lot of customers from manufacturers shipped out to their friends. And it was very nice business.
It went for a while, so that's another of your businesses. Remember, entrepreneur extraordinaire, extraordinary businessman. Now, what in the world, Joe, are you doing in Mechanics Illustrated, May 1949? The Mechanics Illustrated, a copy of that was 15 cents. And I look in this, and I see that there's an article on invention, new in science, and there's a picture of Joe Goodhue. It says gear shift coin holder, and we're going to show that in a minute. But I'm going to read from an article, and it's I'll read right from the magazine. And you won $50 for this, I think.
Yeah.
It says, the burly cop on the icy sidewalk gave Joe Goodhue a look that made him squirm. Joe, a 34-year-old restaurant operator in Leominster, Mass., had just slid his car to a stop before a parking meter but couldn't find a coin. He fumbled through all his pockets, ransacked the glove compartment, even yanked up the back seat. The cop stared harder. Finally, feeling like a kid caught snitching pennies off the newsstand, Joe stopped scrambling for change and backed away. That embarrassing moment in 1947 started Joe on another search for a gadget that would keep coins always handy for meters, toll fares, and fast phone calls. In his home workshop, he invented a plastic coin holder that screws onto the gear shift lever and puts change up to a quarter right at your fingertips. For making life a little easier for the harried motorist, MI's Mechanics Illustrated's digging up $50 in a hurry to keep inventor Goodhue loaded with change for his coin-quick prize gadget. And I'm going to show that now. We have one here. All right, here is the coin quick, and Joe has put the coins in it, and I'll have him demonstrate this in a minute, but this would screw right, oh, I'll demonstrate it. You can, the coins come right out. I think the spring is hasn't worked for a long time, but okay, before I hand it to you, Joe, this would, here you are in your, I'll hand it to you and you can set that. I want to show a couple of pictures. Here's Joe in the car, and this item would could screw right onto the gear shift, or it could also fit right under the dashboard in holes that were already there.
This design here was fit under the dashboard.
That would fit under the dashboard.
They changed the design on the gear shift so that it was no longer on the gear shift.
So
you had to have a coin underneath now. So.
Okay. You sold a lot of these.
Yes, I did, about 500,000.
About 500,000 of these. And here is Joe in his workshop, and he is working on this. And here's another picture of Joe. Make the coin quick gear shift knob. There's Joe. And when we talked about this, Joe, you wanted to be very certain that you gave credit to an individual who's well known to Leominster residents.
Yes,
Louis
Charpentier.
Now, what's the connection between you and Louis Charpentier, Mr. Charpentier?
Louis is a model maker, and he redesigned this unit so that it worked very nicely and designed it for a plastic product. And Louis is
Mr.
older than I am. I can't believe it.
He's older than you are.
Still active and still working with different
But I
people.
think that's part of the secret, that both you and he have a very positive attitude toward life, and
Right.
And hard work, and very, very positive people. Now, here's something else I want to show, just before we go on to another aspect of your life. This was an idea that almost would have made you a lot of money, but...
Yes, it happened. Like a lot of products, sometimes the package costs more than the item inside. But I came up with the idea of making a cookie designed so that I could, let me show you right here, so that the design is right, a star design, so your cookie comes out in a star design.
So at the point here, there's a star, and you'd squeeze the dough, the cookie dough, and it would come out as a star. So you'd
Right.
plop it on the plate there, or the cookie sheet, or whatever it was.
Whatever design you wanted on the cookie sheet.
And this was a great idea. Well, why didn't you become a billionaire with this? What happened?
Well, it happened that I got a letter from a lawyer for cease and desist.
Cease and desist order from a lawyer.
And it seems that somebody came up with the same idea for decorating cakes.
The cake decorators, squeezing with the different tops.
They came up before I did because they got a patent on it. Unfortunately, so I had to stop making them.
Stop making that one. So that one kind of fizzled.
That's correct.
This one, well ahead of your time. What is this?
Well, it is ahead of our time because we don't have bumpers anymore. But this ties into the sunfish you see here, a model of. So when you put the sunfish on the roof of a car, you need to tie it down to something on the car itself. As a result of it, I designed a plastic unit that fit underneath the bumper of the car, like so. This opens up. This is flexible plastic, opens up, and the rope goes up to the boat. It holds the boat from flying off the roof.
Flying off the roof. Now that we get into boats, let's sunfish, sailfish.
Right.
You were a big-time dealer of those.
I I decided the restaurant business wasn't for me the rest of my life. Ooh, I found a dime on the floor here.
So you made a lot of dough. You're still making dough, Joe.
Still bend over to look, I guess. Anyhow, I had to get on the outside because I always liked the outside. So one year, I needed a walk for my summer place on Speck Pond. So I went to the boat show and I ended up, unfortunately, I had to buy a whole truckload of docks. So I bought a whole truckload of docks, and in that way I got into the dock business, making, selling docks to individuals and also to small marinas.
And is this...
And then later on I started selling to larger marinas, and that's the Bourne Marina down in Bourne, Massachusetts, right at the beginning of Cape Cod. And that's a development that still there today.
Still there today.
After a number of years, yes.
And...
Now to get back to the sunfish.
Yes.
Okay, the sunfish came along about 1950, 55, and I always been interested in boys and girls camps. And this is a wonderful item for teaching people how to sail. As a result of that, why they came out with a sailfish first with a flat deck. And it wasn't too comfortable. You could sit on it for about 10 or 15 minutes, and that's about as long as you could sit. So then they came out with the sunfish. And decided that maybe the ideal thing was to rent them out on Cape Cod. As a result, I had 150 sail sunfish. We rented out all over Cape Cod. We were able to go on the beaches, any beach that the hotel was on the beach, we were able to get into. Today, of course, you couldn't even start to get near a beach. But they wanted them because it brought people to the beach. So we did very well. And each year, the boats that are left over, I used the same theory that car rentals used, which was a new car every year, a new car every 2 years. So I sold all the boats, used boats during the wintertime. There's a sign that I put up in all the motels and hotels around the beach and the area of the Cape. And we had boat rentals from Bourne to Provincetown.
And you're getting some kind of an award here?
Yes, there is a sales manager for Alcott, which is the manufacturer of the sailfish and sunfish, give me the top award. My biggest year, we sold 700 sunfish.
Okay.
Which was
a lot.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
And boats were selling for about $500 a piece.
Okay, and here's catalog Goodhue Enterprises.
Back in 1963.
Okay.
That's motif #1 in Gloucester, Mass.
That's the
yes.
The famous.
Is that Rockport?
I think it's. Now you've got me. I think it's
Rockport.
Rockport.
Yes.
Okay, and then Joe, I'm going to go to this. This is a picture. It's a painting. And this is one of your favorite painting, and it brings us to Lake Winnipesaukee. Okay, a beautiful painting, and you said that's your favorite?
Favorite lake.
Favorite lake.
My brother Bill and I both enjoyed water skiing up there. And my brother and I bought a piece of land right after the war for the sum of 1,000 feet for a sum of $8,000.
And is this the flyer that goes with it?
That's the flyer we put out. And we did have prices on it, but we raised them about every year until...
And you had said in the Recipe for Success 1, you suggested buy real estate.
Buy real estate.
And you,
This is your answer.
okay. And
I did buy real estate.
okay, let's hold this one up. Now this one,
This is 500 feet of land I bought on Lake Winnipesaukee to the tune of $32,000.
what a deal! I mean, back then, I mean,
Back then, right.
Imagine what it would.
With a nice Victorian house on it, as well as 8 cabins.
Made a lot of dough, Joe. Let me very quickly, before I want to get into these albums, before we come to near the end of the program. You ran regattas. This is Cape Cod Illustrated, 1973, talking about Hobie cats. Oh, we got to say, did I pronounce it right? The Hobie cat, those are the catamarans. You sold those too, and
yes,
those are the double. Tell us about that.
That came out in 1969. I saw it in Life magazine, and I called Hobie and made arrangements to have a boat shipped to me, and became a dealer. And I think my biggest year I sold 200 of the catamarans, which I've towed a water ski behind a Hobie cat, which is very unusual. I'd never do it again because you can't go back and retrieve the water ski.
I just want to say that in 4 short years, Goodhue Enterprises have become the largest Hobie dealer on the East Coast. The Goodhues, your wife and you, hosted 4 other Hobie and 3 Sunfish regattas this summer and are already preparing for a spring meeting to announce the 1974 racing schedule. So, Joe, you were in all kinds of enterprises. Now, a man of many talents. I have to show this before the end of the program. This is an album, and it shows Mel Fisher and the treasure hunter down in Florida, and
right.
you were even involved in that. Very, very briefly, you bought a share in it, and
Back in 1972, I talked to somebody at the New York Boat Show, and they conned me into buying a share in it. Unfortunately, why the share didn't do too much because they didn't find the mother lode until 1985.
Until after you were out of it.
After I'm out of it. That shows you the gold bars. And it shows me it's only 12 feet of water where they found the treasure.
Treasure.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And I was diving down with them.
you were diving down with them, but you got out of that one too early. Okay,
Yes. Yes, I did.
You have done so many things. Hunting, fishing, a fisherman. This is you ice boating. Let's look at this. Now, this is you, and this is on Winnipesaukee. You were into ice boating.
Yes. Ice boating is a wonderful, wonderful sport. You don't want to tell many people about it because there are too many boats on the lake, and they could collide very easily. Because I've been over close to 100 miles an hour on an ice boat.
Wow.
And Don Kent, son, Jeff Kent, is a wonderful ice boater. He's been all over the world ice boating, and he's #1 in ice boating.
Okay,
It's
and
a lot of fun.
Joe, other things that you have kept very busy, hunting, fishing. Not a lot of hunting, or mostly fishing. You enjoyed fishing.
Yes,
A lot of fishing. Iceland fishing, Canada,
and Alaska.
and Alaska.
Right.
And now in your later years, now in retirement, you are a painter. Not quite the level of your brother Charlie, but much better than myself.
Far from it.
All right, and you paint down in Florida mostly?
Yes.
Okay.
Something to do in your spare time.
I think these are quite good. I'm just gonna. Okay. And so now at the end, I'll just show this last one, Joe. Joe, I just want to say that I thank you very much. The Recipe for Success is a perfect title for the programs we've done with you, because you've combined love and loyalty and friendship and family. Your parents, so important to you, your family. I think that an alternate title for this program should be A Very Good Joe. A very good Joe. You are a fine
Bob,
gentleman.
you forgot one thing.
What's that, Joe?
I have two wonderful daughters.
I didn't mention your children and grandchildren.
Right.
Right. We didn't mention that, but
Right.
a strong family man.
That's what does it.
That's what does it.
Family's everything.
Family's everything.
Right.
I want to thank you, Joe, for these interviews, and I want to thank Kyle Pimarini, Jack Sully, Kevin Moran, Dennis Cormier, and all the folks at LATV. And as always, I want to thank the LATV audience. Thank you very much.
I thank you too.